You are now listening to the Take Notes podcast with yours truly, Fat Boy Finesse, exploring every note one take at a time. We talk about all things fragrance, the community, and the industry. So if that's your type of vibe, then you're in the right place. Party people, Fat Boy family, you know what to do.
Relax and take notes.
Yo, what's going on, party people, Fat Boy family? That's right, it's Wednesday. It is podcast day, so we're gonna get it popping, man. Listen, you guys have been consuming the content. You've been watching on YouTube. You've been listening on Spotify. You've been listening on Apple Podcasts. You've been listening on Amazon Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and I definitely, as always, appreciate the response. For those of you tuning in to the first time, I appreciate it. Thank you for checking out Take Notes podcast, where we delve in, we dive in, we break down, we explore every single scent, one note at a time. So y'all know what to do. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button. While you're ready, go ahead and click the bell so you can be notified every time I drop a new podcast episode every single Wednesday. We're gonna keep this thing going. Also, if you're not available to watch, as I said, you can listen on major podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and iHeartRadio. So man, let a friend know. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. You know what I'm saying? We got another episode live again. But I don't want to waste any time. Let's go ahead and jump into today's conversation. And I was going to talk about this last week, but I'm choosing to talk about, and I want to lay back. I want to chill just a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So we can have a more relaxed conversation, but I don't want it to necessarily take a long time. But I really want to dive back into something we kind of started about earlier, talking about this idea of clones versus originals. Shout out to fragrance connoisseurs in Charm City who allowed me to be part of a panel. And I'll link this down in the description or up in the info card so you can actually go check that out. Conversation we had last month, basically clones versus OGs and the whole idea. And this has been a conversation that has been going on for a while. It's one of the more prevalent conversations that is happening within FragCom. As you can see, only FragCom really cares about these things. And that's something I kind of want to bring to light. So I want to establish my position as it relates to just clones, OGs, whether it be designer fragrances, whether it be niche fragrances, or what we call artisanal, which I would really put the category of independent niche perfumers who don't have necessarily the budget or the infrastructure or the resources to compare with a lot of these mainstream niche companies that we know about. And where I fit in regarding to that, my position, how I feel about it, how I feel about what Mason Francis Kirkjohn said about it being theft, and just how we should kind of feel about this moving forward. So let's first establish one of the things that I say when I go live. There will be no clone slander, no designer slander, no niche slander on my channel. Like point blank, period. I am team fragrance. I rock with fragrance, period. I buy niche fragrances. I buy designer fragrances. I buy clone fragrances. For clones, I started using, I don't care what anybody said. I'm claiming that I started it first, where we either call them covers or we call them remixes. The first time that was ever said was on my channel. I don't care. I got to go back and find that. But because I'm a musician, so I relate everything to music. And to me, fragrance is closely most related to music. You have notes, and then those notes make accords. We call them accords. In music, you call them chords. The only other thing it's closest to is food, and you can kind of relate food to music, as well. But there's not going to be any slander of fragrance. I'm team fragrance. I buy all of it. I love all of it. I appreciate all of it. And so I'm one of those people, I'm kind of frugal in a sense. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like spending a lot of money, but I will spend money when necessary. Sometimes I'm impulsive, and sometimes I will drop money on things. If you ask any female I've dated, go look at their perfume collections. I have given away, if you look at my family, I have given away way more than I have kept for myself. So I don't mind spending money on fragrances that I absolutely love. I just don't think everything is worth my dollar. You know what I'm saying? There may be a lot of things that are worth your dollar. And again, we talked last episode about the subjectivity when it comes to this, because really it's all based on opinion. You can have a level of subjectivity and think you're being objective, but technically it's still subjective to whatever your level of exposure, expertise, or your experience is. So those are 3 E's. That was really good. I came up with that on the spot: exposure, experience, and expertise. You know what I'm saying? And so let's go ahead. One of my favorite fragrances, and shout out, this is a video actually dropping tomorrow, so I'm not going to go into detail about it now, but one of my favorite niche houses, which is a mainstream niche, is Bond Number 9. I just love Bond Number 9. One of my favorite fragrances that a lot of men love to stay away from, but the women absolutely love, is Bond Number 9 Greenwich Village. As you can see, I have a full, real, authentic bottle. This is my bottle. Now, I have a lot of niche fragrances I've never even talked about on my channel. We're going to get into that as well. And this is one of those ones that I absolutely love. I've gifted this, to a lady, special lady in my life back in the past. She's no longer special. She's a special person, just not special as relative to me. And, some Tribeca fragrance as well. And I feel like Chelsea Knights as well were the 3 I bought specifically for her. And those were things that I bought before I knew what discounters were. You know what I'm saying? So my experience as it relates to FragCom fragrance community, like this thing on the internet, I didn't know about that until like July, August of last year. You know what I'm saying? And let me say, really kind of like the first video I made was about Jean Paul Gaultier La Mer Le Parfum, and that was in 2022. I made a couple of videos. I made that video, and then I made a video about this hoodie from Walmart, and then I made a video about how to keep your shirt tucked in or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I was really, my whole thing was trying to show people how to finesse fragrance, fashion, fun, and all those different types of things, but we've really just kind of stuck to fragrance. And so I went away. I started doing, people don't know, I work heavily, you know what I'm saying, in the church. Outside of church, I've done a lot of podcast production. So a lot of, when you see me show up the way I do, you like, is it that deep? I'm like, this is my world. I did tech reviews, camera reviews, lighting, microphones, all those different types of things. So I'm not cheap. Fragrances are cheap compared to the things that I spend my money on, compared to the cameras that I have laying around the house, compared to the computers and the Macs and the iPads and the audio mixers and the lights. Like, fragrances are cheap. Again, it's subjective, because for a lot of people, they're like, that's expensive. I'm like, nah, because we drop $2,000 and $3,000 at a time on a camera, and that's on the low end. That, well, what we call like a mid-size sedan right now, because you got these cameras now, they're like $500, $6,500, $10K, but here's the thing, you make it right back. For the most part with fragrance, until you get into the review side, you ain't getting that money back unless you selling or unless you decanting. So when I say I'm new to the space, I'm not new to the internet. I'm not new to YouTube. I'm just new to this particular community. Well, I'm not saying I'm new now, but when I came in, I was new. So I didn't know anything, you know what I'm saying, about FragCom when there was this internet space, this, that, and the third, and that you could buy fragrances from discounters. I quickly learned that. And so I stopped giving all my money to Saks and to Neiman Marcus and stopped buying the retail. And, you start purchasing things from Fragrance Net, and you learn about the Joma shops because, you go through the battles with eBay and getting the fakes off of that. And you learn to buy from private, sellers. Long story short. Nonetheless, that's one of my favorite fragrances. Okay. And so as I started to become a reviewer and I found out there were these things called clone fragrances, women have always really kind of referred to them as dupes. And it's like basically a cover or a remix or basically an impression or an inspired by fragrance. Now, here's the thing. I should have known, because I've always been into oils. And I've always seen oils that said inspired by blase, 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 blah. But here's the reality of it. I never really paid attention to the fact that they were inspired by something. I really didn't understand what that even meant. I was just like, oh, the oil smells good, I'm a rocket. But like now, how I'm able to go in, grab an oil that's specifically inspired by Greenwich Village, I wasn't thinking about that at the time. This was years ago. All I knew is my uncles and them, they had a lot of cologne. That's really how I kind of got into it. My dad, I've always been a smell good type of guy. And so I get over here in the Fragcom and it's like, oh, there's this thing called dupes. There's this thing called clones, inspirations. Boom. Now it's all kind of coming together. I was like, oh, that's what they meant by inspired by. So when I would actually go back to these places, the flea market, beauty supply store, now I can start putting two and two together. And then I'm like, oh, snap. So I have this fragrance. Here's an oil, you know what I'm saying, that I can wear with it. Boom, 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 boom. So that's how we get to where we are now. So let's talk about Greenwich Village specifically. I learned that there was, you know what I'm saying, a company out there called Joe Milano, Game of Spades. Shout out to Tazo, #1. And then #2, No Cap Fragrances. These were the first two African Americans, let me say black people, or English speaking people, that Tazo being #1 on the internet, that started talking about Joe Malone. We got to give Tazo his props on that. Not Joe Malone, Joe Milano, Game of Spades. Wild Card was the first one. So that sent me down this rabbit hole, opened up this door, and then we end up with something like Game of Spades Win. All right. And this is their version of Greenwich Village. All right. All right. So now people are like, oh, man, that's good. You know what I'm saying? But here's the thing. At the time, Joe Milano was kind of expensive, you know what I'm saying, for a clone fragrance. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like $60, $70. It's like, okay, still cheaper than buying Greenwich Village, especially if you were buying it retail. But it's like, that's still a little steep. So I was watching YouTube one day, and we call him Unc, my man over at Best Brands Perfume, was talking about, hey, this is the best version, this, that, and the third. Grandeur, and then you have Avenue London. And at the time, guess what? He was not lying, because I prefer this, even though it's not a one-to-one. To me, this is still one of the best ones, because I'm not going to give my video away. This is one of the best ones out there on the market compared to this. You know what I'm saying? You have to watch the video to get my full opinion, even though if you've been following the channel for a while, you've seen me already talk about this. And then in comes one of the houses that's just been doing the doggone thing, you know, for 2025. They come out with a version, and then we have Fragrance World under their umbrella of the line from French Avenue. We have Opus Grand, or I'm going to say Opus Grande. All right. That's their version. All right. So people say, well, Walt, what's the point of owning 3 different versions of an original fragrance that you already have? Where #1, at the time, I did not have a full bottle of Greenwich Village. I just had a decant. And then I was going back and forth on whether to buy a full bottle if I wanted to spend the money, because I'm like, yo, I ain't trying to drop that bread. And it's like, boom, here comes a cheaper alternative that is supposed to get me about 80 to 90% of the way there. And that's the first thing I want to establish. The reason some people buy clones, #1, it just has everything to do with affordability. Now, you can't use price as a point of reference to argue for or against, because a lot of people say, well, if money wasn't an issue, wouldn't you just buy the OG? People that are aware the OG exists, absolutely, you're probably going to buy the OG. But whether you have the money or not, there are some people who are just frugal. There are wealthy people who don't like spending money. You know why? Because they want to keep their money. And fragrance is not something that appreciates. Now, some of y'all don't like that conversation, but that's reality. Some of us are really trying to, you know, stack some bread, this, that, and the third. And it's like, yo, I'm not trying to drop $200, $300, $400, $500 at a time on something. If I can get 80 or 90% of the way there, have the same experience. And with some of these fragrances, you're getting 90 to 95% of the total experience. All right. So that's the case you have with that. That's one of my favorite, you know what I'm saying, niche fragrances. One of my favorite designer fragrances. We have 1 Million Lucky. All right. This, it can do no wrong by me. There was a point in time where they were talking about discontinuing this, which is another reason. Accessibility. There are some exclusive fragrances, which I think is one of the main reasons that clone or inspirations or covers or remixes of fragrances should exist, is because if there's a discontinued fragrance, it's probably not going to be coming back out. That's hard to get your hands on, or because it's super exclusive, it's like super expensive. Here comes a clone fragrance. Here comes Dumont with their version, Soprano Soul. And I know some of you are going to say, well, Lattafa has a version. No, this is the absolute best version out there. Forget what you said. You know what I'm saying? Go tell your mama, your grandmama, your mom, your pa, your dog, whatever. All right, boom. Let's keep it going. You know what I'm saying? A shout out to the people that hate when I say, you know what I'm saying. Get drunk off of it. I don't care. There's a fragrance, Filthy Rich Flirt. that I absolutely love. And I went back and forth with this one over and over and over. And I got to change my focus point over and over and over again. Matter of fact, let me do that live because it's bothering me. It's bothering me. Here we go. All right. Where I was going back and forth on getting the fragrance. And at the time, shout out to my boy T, who made a version of it, you know what I'm saying, which is Nazar Juicy. All right. And this was good. This held me over, but I still, there was a level of sweetness that now T probably could have perfected this and got this spot on. But again, at the time, he didn't. And I'm just like, I have this held me over. This is good. But it was just something about the original that I couldn't shake. And I was like, I had to have a full bottle. All right. Y'all, I'm going to keep talking because this is an opportunity for me to run my mouth. We have one of my favorite fragrances, another niche fragrance. All right. You kind of see a trend here. Lamar by Kajal. As far as I'm concerned, one of the sexiest pineapples that exist on the face of this earth. All right. Now, I have a full bottle of this. I absolutely love this bottle. We got a nice dent in this bottle. All right. So I'm a reviewer. I'm not just somebody who's collecting fragrances. I'm not just somebody, you know what I'm saying, who's an enthusiast. I review fragrances almost for a living at this point, you know, because we're doing this consistently. And so what happens is there are people who say, Walt, I like Flirt. I like Lamar by Kajal. I like Greenwich Village. I like, you know what I'm saying, 1 Million Lucky. But here's the reality of it. I can't really afford that right now. Now, here's the problem when we get back to this affordability conversation. Why people buy clones versus originals. What bothers me is that we try to judge people because they can't afford it. Like we use price to penalize people. And that's where this conversation takes on an ugliness that really does bother me. Because I'm not judging you. I'm not checking for you. I'm not checking for your wallet, this, that, and the third. Like what you got going on is what you got going on. And if you got to be fiscally responsible and financially responsible, but you still want to enjoy luxury for less, then I'm going to benefit you. All right. So that's why I have 3 bottles of that. That's why even though I have the original bottle of that, I also have this from Yom and Leo. And when I tell you this is almost a 1-to-1, this is honestly like a 97%. Like this is arguably the highest clone I've ever. Like I probably spray this more than I spray the original. Because the projection on this actually, like both of them are beast. I don't know what it is. I don't know how they did it, but it's something about this that I love just as much, if not more, than the OG. And it is the highest rated clone fragrance, inspired fragrance in my collection. It is spot on. You cannot tell one from the other, from the opening to the dry down. You know, sometimes you'll get a clone fragrance where the opening is different and the heart, the mid may be different, but by the time you get to the dry down, it's the same. Nah, this is one of those instances, rare instances from opening to close. The only other fragrance I can say that really kind of does that is going to be Armaf Odyssey Aqua, which is a version of Invictus Platinum, I think does that. And then I would say third place would be Wildcard. Third place would be Wildcard, which is Bond number 9 Lafayette Street. Then you have the instance of their fragrances that I really, 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 really love. And I'm torn on whether or not to get a full bottle. All right. One of those would be Mind Games French Defense. So you can see I have a decant right here of French Defense. My favorite cherry fragrance, man. I'm a huge lover of gourmand fragrances, and I was exposed to French Defense, and I absolutely loved it. But I did not want to pay that French Defense money. Now, shout out to my boys. They can attest to this. Shout out to my mom. Shout out to my siblings. And I was like, one Christmas gift to myself last year was going to be a full bottle of French Defense from My Games. But guess what? In the midst of that, I sampled and ended up getting a full bottle of this right here, Basic Instinct from Yom and Leo. I always say Yom and Leo. I don't know if it's Yom and Leo, Yom and Leo, Y and L. I ended up getting a full bottle of this. And when I tell you, this would be probably in fourth or fifth place as far as a rating to clones, as far as the uniqueness and the accuracy as far as capturing that French defense DNA. I absolutely love this. French defense has a little bit more depth, just a little bit more depth. But outside of that, that basic instinct is a masterful, masterful, masterful fragrance. So there's an instance of where it's like, if I don't deem the value of something to be worth it, where it's like, now granted, could I have gotten it from a private seller? Probably for, somewhere around 250, 230, something like that. Probably. But sometimes I don't want to deal with people. Sometimes I want to make sure I'm getting a legit real product, this, that, and the third, and that's one of those things that does not pop up on discounters like that. So you pretty much paying that MSRP value. Here's the thing. If I don't deem it necessarily to be that valuable at the time, it's like, and then you come along and you give me something that gets me 90% of the way there. Personally, I'm not going to be upset about that. There are people who care. I do not care. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm not going to judge you for caring. I don't want you to judge me for caring. All right. Now, one of the things that I think we as reviewers have the responsibility to do is not shoot this. Keep it 100 and be honest. There has to be a level of integrity. And this is one of the reasons when I made the episode last week, I can express a lot of people have issues and they have gripes with fragrance reviewers because we don't keep it 100. A lot of times we'll sit here and we'll say, this is 1-to-1. It's better. You know what I'm saying? This is better than the OG. I don't think there is necessarily any clone or inspiration fragrance that is better than the OG. It's not a question of whether it's better. It's a question of the value. Is there more value here than there is there? So it becomes a conversation of affordability. It becomes a conversation of accessibility. It also becomes a conversation of ethics. You know what I'm saying? Because let's keep it a buck. We're paying probably 100 to 200% markup as it relates to price. And that's the other thing where I'm like, we use price to penalize people, but we don't use price to reward people for making smart decisions. Because, you have the Mason Francis Kirk Johns of the world who want to argue it's robbery, it's theft of intellectual property, and this, that, and the third. And we can have that conversation. But let's also have the conversation as to why you're charging $400 to $500 for something that costs you $10, $20 to make. Let's have that conversation. That's what I'm saying. If you want to argue ethics, be careful because it's a double-edged sword. So you come in and you get upset at me for offering a cheaper alternative to your product. Cheaper alternatives have always existed. This is not a new concept. You know how many versions of water you can buy? You know how many versions of spring water you can buy? Mountain spring water, performance water, all of this, pH balanced water? You know how many different versions of white bread you can buy? How many different people sell pork, beef, chicken in the store? How many versions of noodles? Do you buy Top Ramen or do you buy Maraschino, whatever it's called? Like, cheaper alternatives have always, and when I say always, I'm not just talking about 1999, 1969. We're talking about since like medieval times. Y'all think there was only one blacksmith in an entire town? Now, granted, early on, they was probably beefing and going to war and be like, nah, bro, I'm going to be the only blacksmith. But even kings and queens have always wanted their own version of something. We see it in the fashion industry. We see it in the automobile industry. We see it everywhere. Because if it's not broke, don't fix it. Don't reinvent the wheel. Just find a way to put your own spoke in it. So when Big Mac comes out with this Thousand Island sauce, guess what everybody else does? They try to do the same thing. Now, if you're able to capture that success, do you think McDonald's is complaining because y'all got no, what that does is that drives up our marketability because guess what now? You get to find out if it's really better is it better than the real deal? And then you get to determine, is this a fake Or is this just somebody that's taking their opportunity to do it, you know what I'm saying, their own inspiration? All right. So there's some clones that I absolutely don't like. Because a lot of y'all try to get on my case and be like, Walt, you only talk about the things that you like, this, that, and the third, boom, 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 blase, blase, blase. That's some clone fragrances that I hate. Number one, because I hate the DNA. Number two, because they're just trash. One of those fragrances that is absolutely trash is this Roman Green that is from Dua. This is supposed to be a version of Green Extravaganza from Valentino, and it is terrible. This smells like the worst. I wouldn't even clean my windows with this. It smells like window cleaner, but I wouldn't clean my windows with this. You see, this is a full bottle. And don't nobody be dumb and be like, I'll buy it from you. Why would you want to buy something that I'm telling you that I've had for 4 or 5 months at this time? It is terrible. Now, here's the thing. Could it have been this particular bottle? Could it have been this particular batch? Because Dua brand is like the biggest clone house known to mankind. And they put out thousands upon thousands of bottles. And I'm pretty sure their quality assurance check is not that good. So, you know what I'm saying? Nonetheless, that's trash. There's another fragrance that I think is trash. And really because I hate the DNA. We got this Legion. This is another one from Fragrance World. You know, it's supposed to be based on Ojan. I've smelled Ojan, that cinnamon stuff. Y'all want to smell like Home Bazaar. I don't know, you know. And then I have an issue with clone companies that do this. This is why I say I team fragrance. I'll be like, you team clone. No, fool. I talk about what the algorithm tells me to talk about. And you know what the algorithm is? The algorithm is my audience. My audience said they want to know what these clones are. And so that's what I'm going to give y'all. But I wear a lot more things. I own a lot more things that I haven't even had a chance to talk about on my channel. You have some people who, you know, y'all might want to chill out. You know what I'm saying? Fragrance World is one of those companies. Paris Corner, they really do it a lot as well. Y'all, if I flash this, you would be like, oh, he got a bottle of Oud Maracuja. And you'd be like, wait a minute, that ain't Oud Maracuja. That's Oud Madness. Now, here's the thing. I hate this DNA. Something about it makes me sick. Passion fruit and oud, I don't know. It just makes me sick. Like when I say make me sick, I'm not saying like it makes me sick. No, I'm saying like literally, I almost throw up. Like it literally physically makes me want to vomit. Now, is it pretty accurate? It's a pretty good scent. It's pretty good in terms of that. But like, this is where I think they take things too far. Because, you know, Mason Alhambra got sued. You know, they got a cease and desist from Tom Ford. You know, basically Lattafa, who owns Mason Alhambra, got a cease and desist for what they were doing with all their time. Because now you're not just trying to come up with your own, you know, cheaper alternative. You're really trying to almost trick people into believing they're getting the same thing. Because again, the untrained eye, if they don't know any better, they see this and they be like, that's Oud Maracuja. And then they get it, they be like, oh my God, that's Oud Madness. Even the packaging, it's the exact, you know, absolute same thing. So those are really the biggest reasons. Like, I can continue this conversation on. And again, I don't really care what side of the fence you're on. My thing is, whatever side you're on, respect the fact that you're on that side and respect somebody who's on the other side and just come to your own conclusion. Again, I'm going to continue to talk about clone fragrances on the channel, dupes, whatever you want to call it, because that's what people want to know about. And here's the reality. Let me talk to all of my OGs in the community. Y'all got to understand, only Fragcom cares. Fragcom is a very small percentage of the industry. Do we have people who have been able to get at some of these tables and the industry is paying attention? Absolutely. But still, we are a minute fraction of what really happens, and we're not in a position to really push the needle yet. So a lot of these major companies don't really care what we think because we are a niche within a niche that's within a niche. All right. What I'm saying to that is, there is what keeps Jordan alive is culture. I want you to hear something. What keeps Jordan sneakers alive is culture. Hear me when I say this. What keeps Jordan sneakers alive is the culture. The culture for fashion is a little bit different than it is for fragrance, though. Because somebody said I was trying to push the goalpost when I said this, and I'm like, I just argue facts. Matter of fact, you want to argue, I'm just having a conversation. Right now, the industry is being dominated by Gen Z millennials or whatever. We're the ones that are spending the dollars. And so you got to understand, for our generation, for millennials, for Gen Z, we are on this whole luxury for less thing. We're not out here trying to spend that bag. You know what I'm saying? And because we're not trying to spend that bag, we are sometimes gullible, but we are easily influenced. People don't buy products, people buy people. So what do these clone companies do that's more effective than the major companies? They use influencers to push their product. So the reality of it is, you will have people who will never know what bond number 9 Greenwich Village is. But the first exposure they will ever have with the fragrance is Joe Milano Game of Spades win. And that's the reality of where we are. Clones are the New Balances of the world. They're the ASICs of the world. Like, they're not going anywhere. They're here to stay. Get used to it. You see how Nike has come out with their own Croc? Like, come on, man. Like, everybody's doing it. We don't get mad at Ariana Grande for basically cloning BR540. We don't get mad at Prada with Luna Rossa Carbon for basically cloning Dior Sauvage. We don't get mad at Essential Parfums with their Bois Imperial for cloning Ganymede, Marc Antoine Bois. We don't get mad at that. So why are we so hell-bent and uptight? Because these Middle Eastern companies have come in and said, we're going to tell y'all the truth. Y'all are really paying for a name. You're really paying for a brand. You're really paying for the marketing. And if you're okay with that, be okay with that. But you also have to be okay with people that are like, man, I can go get the Avias from Walmart and be fine. Because it's not the shoe itself, it's how I wear the shoe. Just like fragrances, it's not the fragrance alone that drops panties, but it's how you rock the fragrance. Because if you whack, I don't care what you put on, you're just not gonna get no play. But you know what I'm saying? If you know how to finesse that thing, the world is yours. So again, this is gonna be one of the last times I had this conversation. I don't want to keep having this conversation, but I wanted to have it in a way that makes sense, and you could really understand my position. I think I've been talking for a minute. Okay, I'm about at 32 minutes, so that's not bad. So you could really understand and dissect what is really the whole thing when it comes down to clones, when it really comes down, the OGs. Like I said, I love all of it, man. Get in where you fit in. You have to accept the reality that due to social media, due to the democratization of fragrance and how it's so diverse, we are living in a time where a lot of things are going to be based on what I say, exposure, experience, and expertise. We are the experts, all right? We are the experts. And now we are driving the exposure we're exposing people to all these different fragrances. Your audience may only rock with niche fragrances, and that's fine. So you continue to expose your audience to new niche fragrances. You may rock with designer, expose your audience to designer fragrances. You may rock with clones, expose your audience to clone fragrances so that now they can have an experience with those fragrances. And guess what? Depending on the experience that they have, they're going to buy more. They're going to engage with you. They're going to talk about it, and they're going to push other people to go get more. That's how this thing works. It's one big circle of life in a revolving circle. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reality of it. So again, y'all just make Fragcom great again. Let's just make Fragcom great again. Let's just wear your fragrance, man. Buy what you want to buy. If you like it, I love it. If you, I don't care. I don't care. Like I say, I told y'all, I'm your favorite fat boy. I'm your cousin. There are a lot of niche fragrances I'm still diving into. And I tell y'all those things. I talk about niche fragrances on my channel. I've talked about a lot of designer. I hadn't really talked about designer fragrances at all really last year. So we've made sure we push designers more to the forefront this year. We're going to talk about all of it. And that's the relationship and the rapport that I've established with you all, so you know what to expect. So it's not a matter of should you buy a clone versus an OG. It's just a matter of why would you buy the clone versus the OG. And really what it all boils down to, in my expert opinion, shout out to Matt Hoffa, is value. Where is your treasure? Where do you place value? Do you place value on the brand name? Do you place value on what has always stood the test of time? Or do you place value on new innovative things? And people say, well, you copying somebody else's recipe is not necessarily innovative. Okay, then stop driving the car that you drive. Because regardless of whether your car looked like another car, I guarantee you that engine came from somebody else. Let's keep it a buck. The computers that it's like, we have an issue with fragrance, but it's like there are clones all around us. Like there are very few things now that are original. And we didn't even get a chance to get into the whole artisanal thing, because y'all want to talk about people pushing the goalpost. It's like, well, you know, there's a difference between niche and artisan. I was like, all right, here we go. It don't matter. Just like what you like and love what you love. And if you don't wear clones, don't rock them. Like, you can speak highly of niche without throwing a shot at designer or clone. You can speak highly of clone without throwing a shot at designer or niche. You can speak highly of the girl that you with without trashing the last girl that you with. I can speak highly of Jordan without trashing LeBron. I can speak highly of LeBron without trashing Jordan. Love fragrance. Again, only Fragcom cares. Y'all already know, shirt is available. But man, listen, y'all know what to do. Comment, holla at your boy. Let me know how you feeling. I try to lay back this time, because normally I'm up and I'm talking to y'all like this. Is like, nah, I just want to chill. I want to chill. I want to have more of a conversation. And let me know if you're still loving the format. Is it too long? I'm trying to stay somewhere. I think the last time I was like 40 something minutes. I'm trying to stay around this 35 minute mark. Really 30 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. But I appreciate y'all watching, man. Comment if you're listening. Leave me a comment. Respond to the poll. All these different types of things. Rate the show. If you're on Spotify, if you're on Apple, if you're on Amazon, if you're on iHeartRadio, I need you to rate the show and leave a comment. Definitely do me that favor. I appreciate y'all on YouTube. Y'all doing the doggone thing. But if you're listening, rate the show and comment. As a matter of fact, all of y'all that comment on YouTube, just click them links in the description to go over there, rate the show, and leave a comment, man. And I definitely appreciate it. Until next time, we'll catch you guys next week. I got a big guest that's going to be showing up soon. You know what I'm saying? So we're locking that in and getting that recorded. But I appreciate y'all rocking with your boy. And yeah, that's it, man. Value. It's all a value conversation at the end of the day. But until next time, I catch you guys in the next episode. Y'all be easy.